Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muliwanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Chandley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted and so very honored that you are joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is Shelby Kretz. She is here to celebrate Little Justice Leaders. Before we invite Shelby into the studio, we want to let you know that this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by Lori Walmart's Dino's Pajama Party. This is an amazing and fun picture book from one of our favorite guests, Lori Walmart. If you are a regular listener to the podcast, you are familiar with the name Lori Walmart. She has been on the program to celebrate her 5 picture book biographies of women in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. They were created for older kids. Lori decided to do something a little bit different. She's reaching out to younger kids in her debut fiction picture book called Dino Pajama Party. Dinos dance and sing till the sun goes down in this rollicking, rhyming bedtime book that you and your kids are going to love. It'll make a great holiday gift, a great addition to any family library. It's Dino's Pajama Party by our friend Lori Walmart. Joining us right now from the great state of Ohio, our guest today is here to celebrate a really fun series for kids. It's called the Little Justice Leader series. Please welcome to the show, Shelby Kretz. Hey, Shelby, how are you?
Hi, Jed. Thanks for having me. I am great, and I'm super excited to be here and to have this conversation.
I'm excited to have you on, too. We've been hearing a lot about justice and social justice for the last couple of years, thankfully. And there's a great need to have a conversation, I think, especially with our kids, about what justice is and what it isn't. And so why don't you start by telling us a little bit about Little Justice Leaders?
Absolutely. So exactly for the reason you just said, we've been hearing about justice more often, and it's so important, and so many parents and educators want to be talking to their little ones about this. So we started Little Justice Leaders, and it's a monthly subscription for parents and teachers to learn about social justice topics. So we use books, crafts, other information, supplies to teach parents and teachers essentially how to talk to their little ones about issues of justice every single month.
Cool. Well, we're right now talking in the month of October, so to get a feel for what this is, tell us what a subscriber would have received this month.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the month of October, our theme was youth activism. So our subscribers got our box with a book about activism. The specific book was called Follow the Moon Home, and it's about a group of young children who identify a problem in their community, which is that the sea turtles aren't, safely hatching and making it to the water, and they make it their mission to find a way to solve that problem for their community. And then the kids also got some craft supplies, and most importantly, the adults get a whole series of information cards, worksheets, and lesson plans to talk to their little ones about this particular theme, which was youth activism.
Very cool. I've in one of the other podcasts that I've been affiliated with, the Solve It for Kids podcast. My brain is just fried this morning.
I get it.
Solve It for Kids podcast, we spoke to a ecologist, and she talked a lot about that whole issue about sea turtles and how we can be active and help them. Mm-hmm. And what a neat idea of a way of I think more than just educating kids, it sounds like Little Justice Leaders empowers kids, lets them know that they can make a difference in their communities.
Absolutely. That is our entire goal, is to, teach them about a bunch of different issues so they can start to see, what am I passionate about? What am I excited about? How do I want to get involved? And how can I make a difference in my community? And our goal is that it makes learning more tangible. It makes it more fun, more interesting, more important, and more urgent for them, because we know, we've all heard kids ask, like, when am I ever going to need to learn this? Why do I have to do this? And with these lessons, we have a very strong why, right? Because as you can see, we connect this, we tell them we connect this to issues that they see in their community, and they can see that it makes a real difference. And so that makes them, more excited to read the books, because they're reading something, and then they're seeing it happen when they put that into action in their lives.
Now, let's just, for the sake of argument, there's a family in Ohio where you are that is part of Little Justice Leaders, and they received the kit in October. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if there's a lot of sea turtles in Ohio. How can they make that relevant to their kids?
Absolutely. So in this particular case, the box was really about youth activism. The book was about sea turtles, but we used, the box itself to talk about, okay, these kids in this book, were focused on sea turtles, and that's what they saw in their community. What do you see in your community? And then we talk about the tools of activism, right? Using your eyes to look around and see, what are the problems that I think I can make a difference on? And then, talking to the folks who are most involved. So in the book, for example, they spoke to, people who knew more about the issue of sea turtles. And so, we encourage the kids, talk to people who know more about this issue in your community, get involved, and then identify potential solutions. So it's not so much about do exactly what they did, but it's rather about how can you take the lessons from what they did and apply that to something that you care about, whether that be anti-racism, whether that be LGBTQ rights, whether that be environmental sustainability, so that they can kind of take it and make it their own.
I've mentioned this on the podcast before. When my son was in kindergarten, one of his classmates, and this is a very long time ago, over 25 years ago, one of his classmates became very upset because as he was driving to school, him and his mom saw that a goose had been hit by a car. And so he did something about it. It just so happened that the mayor of Boston lived in our neighborhood, and Travis went to the mayor's house and knocked on the door and said, hey, this happened this morning. Can we do something about it? And sure enough, the mayor put up a goose crossing sign at that location, and that remains there to this day. And I don't think any geese have been hurt at that spot since.
Wow, that's awesome. See, that's exactly the kind of thing we're hoping that kids can learn, is this small things that you can do that really make a huge difference. That's such a cool story.
Yeah. So what inspired you to create Little Justice Leaders?
Yeah, so the biggest thing, I work in education. I've worked in education for a long time, and particularly around the 2016 election, a lot of parents and teachers were, expressing concern because they didn't know how to talk to little kids about maybe the messages they were hearing in the media, the mixed messages, the anger, the fear, the hate. And I was hearing from a lot of them, well, I don't know how to talk to, a first grader about this, because it is this big, scary, complex issue. And so kind of the consensus was, so I'm just not going to talk about it at all. And that was pretty concerning to me, because we know that kids are hearing these messages in the media, and it's causing a lot of fear, uncertainty, anxiety, misinformation, confusion. And so I thought, maybe there's something we can do to equip parents and teachers with the tools that they need to break this down, break all of these issues of justice down into an age-appropriate way.
I love that you're talking about giving parents tools, helping kids learn how to use tools, use their mind to kind of look at problems, because we do have a lot of problems, but unfortunately, we seem to be living in a time where there's just it's A or B. We can't disagree. We can all see that there are problems out there. Hopefully I'll address that there are problems out there. And because there are lots of problems out there. There are always going to be problems. But when we are just faced with, you either have to be on this team or that team, I think that that's a huge problem, because no team is right all the time. No team is wrong all the time. And if you have that perspective, nothing is going to get done, because what happens is people are just fighting to prove that the team is right instead of moving forward to make the problem better.
Exactly, absolutely. So actually one of our boxes last year was, the theme was bridging the political divide. And we talked about, folks with different, political and social views, and how do you connect and how do you, have dialogue and, come to, if it's not agreement, at least an understanding of people who think differently than you. And so that's something we try to do in every box is think about, okay, here's this issue. What do you think about it? Here's what some people think. Here's what other people think. And, allowing the kids to really explore different perspectives and come to their own conclusions, while also, recognizing a respect for kind of all different views, obviously, as long as they aren't hateful views.
Mm-hmm. How do you think we've gotten to this point where it seems like the grown-ups in the room aren't able to have that understanding that we're looking at issues from different perspectives. We have different lived experiences, and have that respect for each other instead of just, you don't agree with me, you're dead to me, or you should be dead.
I think that's exactly the problem. What you said is that we have different backgrounds, right? We've grown up in different situations, and a lot of times all of the people we're surrounded with are in that exact same, have had those exact same experiences or very similar experiences to us. So we're living in these situations where we're surrounded by people who agree with us, and we're just constantly reinforced that we're correct in our beliefs. And I think, and also, we haven't been taught very much to question our beliefs or ask different questions or, reach across the aisle and try to understand different perspectives. And so I think that really solidifies the belief that, like, I am correct, I am right, everyone around me is saying I am right. So when I do find someone who thinks differently, it's automatically, I'm shutting down, and I think it's not right.
How can we encourage our kids to step outside those echo chambers? Because that's basically what they are, and they become magnified right now through social media because, well, we just hang out on social media with the people who think like us, and we just read media that agrees with us or read books that agree with us. How do we encourage our kids to challenge themselves and to, look through somebody else's point of view?
Yeah, so I think a big thing is really incorporating diversity, and the easiest place to start with that is with books, right, or other media that your kids are taking in. So making sure you're looking for like true diversity too, not the surface level diversity that I think a lot of folks, maybe mix in a little bit of racial diversity into their kids' library and call that diversity, but really I'm talking about a deeper level of books that really represent different perspectives, different points of view, different religions, different disabilities, different, family structures, all of those, things that really make up diversity, and different political views, different social views, all of these different perspectives, and bringing those in as, not necessarily to present as this is right and this is wrong, but to present as these are the different ways that people think, these are the different experiences that people have grown up with, and it may be different from us, but it helps us to learn from those perspectives. And I think adults could learn a lot from this too, right? In terms of like diversifying the books that you're reading about things that, you never have experienced and you never would understand because your life is not, like that. So for example, for me, one book that I read, I know a lot of folks have read, Hillbilly Elegy, and it's actually based partly in Ohio, but just a completely different experience than how I was raised. Educated is another one, a memoir that's just, opens your mind to, a different experience happening in the same country that you were born in. And so a lot of, things like that can really help us to step out of our own perspective, step out of our echo chamber, and start to really understand. And then, of course, the best way to do it is in real life, right? Mm-hmm. If we can move past the books and create true diversity in our actual lives.
Yeah. I remember having a conversation at church one day with this mom, and she was commenting to me and how wonderful it was that my kids are so involved, and she loved to see my kids up in the altar, and I must be so proud, and she is so worried because her daughter was getting ready to go off to college, and my kids were older than her daughter, and she was nervous because, college, that's when they go and they start questioning their religion, and how terrible would that be? And I said, no, actually, that's a good thing. Because if our religion can't stand up to questions, there's a problem. We have to look at that. And I think the same is true with our politics, with our the culture, the way we look at things. If these beliefs can't stand up to some hard questions, then we really need to think about those beliefs.
Absolutely. And I think our kids can offer so much richness in that, because it's super scary, right? Your kid's going off to college. Are they going to change all of their views? Like, is everything you taught them going to, crumble away, or whatever it might be? But also we have, hopefully, for most folks, a deep bond of love and caring for our kids. So when they do come back with questions or with, maybe even different viewpoints, it kind of forces us to have those across the aisle conversations, because, it's kids and the parents, right? And so as long as you remain committed to, loving and supporting your children, which of course most parents do, we hope most parents do, then that can be the opening dialogue for a lot of people, where it's the first time they're having to talk to someone they love who has different beliefs than them. Yeah.
Yes. And it's really important to remember those times. When your kids come home from high school, from college, and they have a very strong opinion that is different than yours, it's really hard, but it's really important to understand that this is what you wanted. When you're sitting down reading with your kids and asking your kids, that we always encourage parents to do, asking your kids, what do you think is going to happen next? What do you think about this character? What do you think about this situation? What do you think about the choices? And we always remind parents that whatever their kids think when you're asking their opinion, it's right. It's not right or wrong. It's their opinion. They're sharing it with you. Love that. So when your kids come home and they start having their own opinions that are different than yours, you got to kind of love that too. You can disagree with it, but you can do it respectfully and lovingly.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly that. Like, we want them to develop critical thinking, right? We want them to have their own ideas, to think creatively, to, seek out diversity. And then when they do, we have to be ready for that. Sometimes it becomes, disagreeing with the parents. And I think that's just so beautiful, because I think it really does open so many folks' minds, both the kids and the parents in that case, to being willing to have the harder conversations that they might not be willing to have with someone who they don't have such a strong bond with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's a really good point, because a lot of the passion your kids, maybe your almost adult kids or adult kids, express to you may not be so much anger towards you. It just might be the fact that this is the first time that they feel safe enough to share with somebody their passion, with somebody that they might disagree with. And so, and they're practicing. And so it might not come out the way they intended it. So work through it. That's the thing, the dialogue that we start having with our kids as they sit on our laps in reading books together. That loving dialogue can and should continue as they become adults and throughout our entire lives. And we don't always have to agree.
Exactly.
Yeah. This has been really neat. What's the reaction been as you've created Little Justice Leaders and it's out there in the world? What's the reaction to it been?
Yeah, I mean, overall, it's been incredibly positive. I hear a lot of stories from parents and teachers who are implementing this work and, what they've learned from it. I hear so often that, like, the adult themselves has actually, says they're secretly learning just as much as their kids are learning, which is kind of the point, right? For all of us to be learning and growing together. So it's been overwhelmingly positive. Obviously, we get some pushback, right? We get some folks who say it's not appropriate. We get some folks who, think that, what we're doing may not be age appropriate or just content-wise isn't appropriate to be bringing into schools or bringing to young people. But for the most part, it's been very positive.
Is there a particular issue that people have claimed or complained that's inappropriate for certain ages?
I think, yes. The number one issue we hear that folks don't want to talk to kids about is LGBTQ identities.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I think that would have been my guess.
Yeah.
And so what would you say to a parent of a second grader and they receive a box that might be have a book or story in it that talks about a trans kid, and they say, I don't want my kid talking about this. I don't want to bring it up with my kid at this moment. What would your response to that person be?
So my response would be, and we hear this all the time. I think that reaction is often rooted in fear, right? Because we maybe don't want that for our child. Maybe you don't want that for your child, because I'll hear from parents like, are you going to teach my kid to be gay or something like that, right? And so, but the reality is, if your child is trans, your child is trans, right? Reading a book about it is not going to make your child trans or not, but by offering this to them, one, you're showing a loving acceptance no matter who your child is, but more likely, you're showing your child to love other people, right? So if they do come and meet a trans child in their class, that they're going to be the person who is kind and loving and respectful and understanding of that child's experience. And most parents can agree that that's what they want for their kids, right? They want their kids to be kind and loving to people, even people who are different from them. So it really is about recognizing that it's about teaching empathy. It's about showing acceptance and love and care for all people, no matter what, which includes your own child. I think the other thing is, if you think it's not appropriate for a 7-year-old, we have to recognize the fact that kids much younger than that are coming out as trans. And so, if your 7-year-old, if one 7-year-old has to go through all of the trauma of that exists in our current society from being transgender, then your 7-year-old, I think, can stand to learn about that experience, right? And be able to process and understand it just fine. I think the other thing with the LGBTQ identities that folks worry about is I think they think that it's going to be, about sex, and it's not. Right? It's about families. We're not teaching a kindergartner to think about who they're attracted to. That makes no sense. When we bring this to a kindergartner, we're talking about different family structures. Some people have 2 moms, some people have 2 dads. You might live with just your dad. You might live with your grandma. So it's really about just showing like, okay, people's families are different, right? And that's how you really step it up to be age appropriate. You don't talk about attraction to kindergartners or first graders. You wouldn't, talk about that until they're much older. At the younger age, it's really just about showing those family structures exist. So again, when your child runs into a child who has 2 moms, they're not going to say something mean or inappropriate or hurtful to that other kid, and they're not going to hurt that other kid because to them it's been normalized. And so that's really what it is. And I think the fear just comes from the uncertainty of it because we aren't sure how to do it.
Yeah, I love that Little Justice Leaders is teaching kids to love everyone, to teaching kids that every person deserves to be loved, deserves to be respected, deserves to be included. I think that's beautiful.
Exactly that. And I think there are very few parents who would say they don't want their kids to learn that, right? No matter what your religious, political, social views may be, most of us can come together on the fact that we want our kids to be kind. We want our kids to love others. We want our kids to show respect.
Yeah. And it really is beautiful when your kids grow up and you see that they're allies of everyone and just ready to stand up and be protective and supportive of every human being they meet.
Absolutely. And I think, I hope that's what a lot of parents do want, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what a lot of teachers want for the kids that they work with.
Yeah. I know people are going to want to know where they can go to find out more about you and more about Little Justice Leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. So to check out the box and learn about the subscription, you can visit littlejusticeleaders.com. But if you want, we also provide a ton of free information on our Instagram. So I know not everyone's able to get the box. So we try to put out tons of free content for parents and teachers who want to start having these conversations today, but maybe aren't ready or aren't able to get the box. So please also visit us on Instagram at Little Justice Leaders, and you'll get tips, resources, book recommendations, everything that you'll need to get started with this work right away.
That's wonderful. we've had a really wonderful time speaking to the founder, the creator of Little Justice Leaders, Shelby Kretz. Hey, Shelby, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Jed. This was awesome.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Brett Bean. He's coming in to celebrate Zoo Patrol Book 3, a great graphic novel series for young kids. If you are the author of a fantastic children's book, whether it's a picture book, middle grade novel, early reader, young adult title, you might be frustrated at just how difficult it is to let the world know about your book. Well, we want to help you. There are so many ways the Reading with Your Kids podcast can help celebrate your book and let the world know all about it. Of course, you can be a guest on the podcast. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy. It gives you the chance to tell thousands of people about your fantastic book. You could submit your book to our certified great read panel. If they believe that your book is worthy of 4 or 5 out of 5 stars, it becomes a certified great read. And we just launched a great monthly promotion program for authors that will celebrate your book on the podcast to our social media followers and display your book on our nationwide network of pedestrian billboards. The place to go to learn about these services, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page and scroll on down to whatever service you are interested in. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, want to start by thanking our guest, Shelby Kretz. Please be sure to check out Little Justice Leaders. Also want to thank our sponsor, Lori Walmart. Be sure to check out Dino's Pajama Party. It's a blast. You and your kids are going to love it. Also want to thank my team, Alejandro Doherty, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Michael Murphy. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.